G'day mates and welcome back to Outback Confessions. Tonight we're not just spinning a yarn, we're digging into one of the greatest and most tragic mysteries of this sunburnt country. We're talking about the Burke and Wills expedition, a journey that set out to conquer the continent, but ended in a desolate, unforgiving landscape, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and whispers of a hidden treasure. Was it gold? Jewels? Or something far more valuable, something that could change the very history of Australia? They say the Outback keeps its secrets, and this one, mates, is buried deep under the scorching sun and the endless red dust. What if the real story, the one they don't tell you in the history books, involves more than just a failed expedition? What if there was something they found, something they tried to hide, something that ultimately sealed their fate? Pull up a stump, grab a cold one, and let Old Man Roo take you on a journey into the heart of a legend, where ambition met disaster, and a hidden treasure might still be waiting to be unearthed. This ain't just history, mates. This is a mystery that still echoes across the vast, silent plains. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you might just believe that some treasures are best left buried. Back in 1860, Melbourne was a booming city, full of ambition and a thirst for discovery. The Royal Society of Victoria, they had a grand idea: to cross this vast continent, from south to north, to map the interior, find new grazing lands, and maybe, just maybe, uncover some of the riches they believed lay hidden in the heart of Australia. It was a monumental undertaking, the most expensive expedition in Australian history, costing a fortune in today's money. They gathered a massive team, 19 men, 25 camels, 23 horses, and enough supplies to last 2 years. It was a spectacle, mates, a real show, with thousands of people lining the streets of Melbourne to watch them depart. The leaders: Robert O'Hara Burke, an Irishman, a police superintendent with no real experience in exploration, and William John Wills, a surveyor, a more cautious and scientific mind. A bit of an odd couple, you might say, but they were tasked with an epic journey into the unknown. Now, from the get-go, this expedition was plagued with problems. Burke, he was a man of action, impulsive, and not one for meticulous planning. He clashed with his second-in-command, George Landells, the camel master, who eventually resigned. Then there was the sheer weight of their supplies, 6 tons of it, everything from scientific instruments to a Chinese gong. They were bogged down, literally and figuratively, from the start. The heat was brutal, the terrain unforgiving, and the camels, well, they weren't exactly built for the Australian bush. They were losing time, losing supplies, and morale was sinking faster than a stone in a billabong. But despite all this, despite the bickering and the blunders, they pushed on, driven by the promise of glory, and perhaps the lure of something more. Something that wasn't just about mapping a continent, but about finding a fortune. Because you see, mates, there were whispers even then, whispers of ancient Aboriginal sites, of hidden mineral deposits, of a treasure so vast it could make a man richer than a king. And some say it was this whisper, this tantalizing possibility, that truly drove Burke to push his men and himself to the very limits of endurance. A treasure, not just of knowledge, but of untold wealth, waiting to be claimed by the first to find it. And that, mates, is where our story truly begins to unravel. The Outback, she's a harsh mistress, but she holds secrets deeper than any mine shaft. And some of those secrets, they're worth dying for. Or are they? Stay with me, because the journey has just begun, and the real treasure, it might not be what you think. As Burke and Wills pushed deeper into the continent, leaving the relative comfort of the settled areas behind, they entered a world unlike anything most of them had ever known. This wasn't just bush. This was the Outback, raw and untamed. The landscape shifted from open plains to dense thorny scrub, then to vast parched deserts, and finally, to the humid mosquito-infested tropics of the north. It was a land of extremes, where temperatures soared during the day and plummeted at night, where water was a precious commodity, and where every step was a battle against nature itself. The expedition, already burdened by its excessive supplies and internal squabbles, began to unravel. The camels, while hardy, struggled with the unfamiliar terrain. The horses, even more so. Men fell ill, supplies dwindled, and the relentless sun beat down, sapping their strength and their will. Burke, in his eagerness to reach the Gulf of Carpentaria, made a series of questionable decisions. He split the party, leaving a large portion of the supplies and men at a depot camp at Cooper Creek, with instructions to wait for his return. This decision, mates, would prove to be one of the most fateful of the entire expedition. He pressed on with a small, hand-picked group, Wills, John King, and Charles Gray, aiming for the northern coast. They were moving faster now, lighter, but they were also cutting themselves off, venturing into a truly unknown and unforgiving wilderness. It was during this desperate dash north that the whispers of the treasure began to take on a more tangible form. Not gold, not jewels, but something far more intriguing. Some say they stumbled upon ancient Aboriginal sites, places of immense spiritual power, where the very rocks seemed to hum with an otherworldly energy. Others claim they found evidence of a lost civilization, perhaps even a hidden spring of pure, life-giving water, a true oasis in the heart of the desert. There were vague entries in Wills's journal, hastily scribbled notes about unusual formations and peculiar markings on rocks, things that didn't quite fit the geological descriptions of the area. Were these just the ramblings of exhausted men, or were they hints of something extraordinary, something they knew they couldn't carry, but felt compelled to document? The Outback. She has a way of revealing her secrets, but only to those who are willing to look beyond the obvious. And sometimes those secrets come with a price that Burke and Wills were about to pay, in full. The green hell of the tropics, the red dust of the desert, they were closing in, and the true nature of their quest and its hidden dangers was about to be revealed. What do you reckon, mates? Was it just the heat playing tricks on their minds, or did they glimpse something that was never meant for European eyes? The journey continues, and the stakes are getting higher. Against all odds, against the brutal heat, the dwindling supplies, and the growing exhaustion, Burke, Wills, King, and Gray, they made it. On February 9, 1861, Wills and King reached the tidal reaches of the Flinders River, just a few miles from the Gulf of Carpentaria. They couldn't see the open sea. The mangrove swamps were too thick, but they could taste the salt in the air, feel the tidal pull. They had achieved their primary objective. They had crossed the continent from south to north. It was a monumental feat of endurance, a testament to their sheer grit. But it was a hollow victory, mates. They were weak, starving, and their supplies were almost gone. They had pushed themselves to the absolute limit, and the return journey, they knew, would be even harder. It was during this brief, fleeting moment of triumph, right there on the edge of the continent, that some say the true nature of their treasure was revealed. Not a physical hoard, but something far more profound and perhaps far more dangerous. Wills in his journal made a cryptic entry about a discovery that would change everything, but the details were sparse, almost deliberately vague. Was it a new understanding of the land, a spiritual awakening brought on by the immense solitude and the ancient power of the Outback? Or was it something more tangible, something they couldn't carry, but felt compelled to record? Some legends speak of a hidden spring, a source of pure, life-giving water, guarded by ancient Aboriginal spirits, a secret that could unlock the true potential of this arid land. Others whisper of a unique mineral deposit, not gold, but something even rarer, something with properties unknown to European science, a material that glowed with an ethereal light in the darkness. One story, passed down through generations of Aboriginal people in that region, tells of the Singing Stones, a place where the earth itself hums with energy, and where strange, iridescent crystals can be found. These crystals, they say, hold the memories of the land, and to disturb them is to unleash ancient forces. Did Burke and Wills stumble upon such a place? Did they, in their desperate search for water and a way out, inadvertently uncover a secret that was never meant for them? The Outback, she has a way of testing a man's soul, and sometimes she offers a glimpse of wonders or horrors that can drive a man to madness. They turned back, mates, with their victory tasting like ash in their mouths, and the weight of their discovery pressing down on them. They were heading back to Cooper Creek, back to the depot, back to what they hoped would be salvation. But the Outback, she had other plans, and the treasure, whatever it was about to demand its final fatal price. The journey back, mates, that's where the real tragedy unfolds. And the mystery of the hidden treasure, it only deepens. The return journey, mates, was a nightmare. The same vast, unforgiving landscape that had tested them on the way north now turned into a relentless enemy. The wet season had ended, and the rivers they'd relied on were now dry, cracked beds. The heat was scorching, the flies relentless, and the lack of water became a constant, agonizing torment. Burke, ever the impatient leader, pushed them harder, faster, driven by a desperate hope to reach Cooper Creek before their supplies ran out completely. But the Outback, she doesn't care for human schedules. She moves at her own pace, and she demands respect. Charles Gray, already weakened by dysentery, began to falter. He was lagging behind, struggling to keep up. Burke, in a moment of harsh desperation, accused him of malingering, even flogged him. It was a brutal act, born of fear and exhaustion, and it cast a dark shadow over the already strained group. Gray eventually died, just days before they reached Cooper Creek, his body buried hastily in the unforgiving earth. 3 men left, now 2. The toll was immense, not just on their bodies, but on their minds. The isolation, the constant struggle, the gnawing hunger and thirst, it was enough to break even the strongest of men. And it was during this desperate retreat that the treasure they supposedly found began to haunt them. Not in a good way, mind you. Some say the discovery they made near the Gulf wasn't a blessing but a curse. Perhaps it was a sacred Aboriginal site they desecrated, unknowingly unleashing a spiritual retribution. Or maybe the unusual formations Wills noted were not just geological curiosities, but ancient traps designed to protect something powerful, something that didn't want to be disturbed. There are whispers among the old indigenous folk of a dreaming curse that falls upon those who take what is not theirs from the land, especially from places of ancient power. They say the land itself turns against them, guiding them astray, making water disappear and filling their minds with despair. I heard a story from an old tracker, a fella named Jimmy, whose grandfather had seen the Burke and Wills party on their way back. He said they looked like ghosts, their eyes hollow, their movements erratic. He claimed they were carrying something wrapped in canvas that seemed to hum with a strange energy. He said his grandfather warned them, told them to leave it, to return it to the land, but they didn't listen. They were too far gone, too consumed by their own ambition, or perhaps by the very thing they carried. Was it just the weight of their failure, the physical and mental exhaustion that led to their demise? Or was there something else, something unseen, something ancient, that actively worked against them, ensuring that the treasure they found would never leave the Outback? The line between bad luck and a curse, mates, can be mighty thin out here. And when you're lost in the vastness of this land, with nothing but your own thoughts for company, every shadow, every strange sound can become a harbinger of doom. The long road back was leading them not to salvation, but to a tragic, inevitable end. And the secret of their hidden treasure, it was about to be buried with them. After months of unimaginable hardship, after pushing their bodies and minds to the absolute breaking point, Burke, Wills, and King finally stumbled back to Cooper Creek. Their eyes, hollowed by starvation and despair, must have lit up with a flicker of hope as they approached the depot camp. This was their salvation, their lifeline, the place where they expected to find fresh supplies, a relief party, and a chance to finally rest. But the Outback, mates, she's a cruel mistress, and sometimes her tricks are the most devastating of all. They arrived on April 21st, 1861, utterly exhausted, only to find the depot camp deserted. The main party, led by William Bry, had left just hours earlier, believing that Burke and Wills were lost. They had waited for 18 weeks, far longer than their original orders, but the supplies were dwindling, and they couldn't risk their own lives any longer. Bra had buried a small cache of food and a note, marking the spot with the now infamous dig tree. A cruel twist of fate, a hair's breadth from salvation. Imagine the despair, mates, to have come so far, endured so much, only to find an empty camp, a silent testament to their miscalculation and the unforgiving nature of time in the wilderness. It was here, in this moment of utter desolation, that the treasure they carried or the secret they held might have played its final insidious role. Some say that the very presence of this treasure, whether it was a physical object, a map, or a piece of forbidden knowledge, had somehow influenced their decisions, causing delays, leading them down paths that ultimately led to this tragic rendezvous with an empty camp. There are stories of Burke, in his delirium, muttering about a glowing stone he'd found, a stone that promised untold power but demanded a terrible price. Wills, in his final journal entries, hinted at a burden they carried, something that weighed heavier than any physical load, something that had drained their very life force. One Aboriginal elder, whose ancestors witnessed the expedition, spoke of a dreaming stone that Burke and Wills had disturbed. The stone, he said, held the balance of the land, and when moved, it caused disharmony, leading to confusion and ill fortune for those who possessed it. He claimed that the stone, in its silent way, had subtly guided them away from help, ensuring that its secret remained buried with the land. Was it just the elders' interpretation of a tragic series of events? Or was there a deeper, mystical force at play, ensuring that the treasure of the Outback would never truly leave its grasp? The Outback, she has a way of twisting fate, of turning hope into despair with a single silent gesture. And for Burke and Wills, that gesture was the empty camp at Cooper Creek, a moment that sealed their doom and deepened the mystery of what they truly sought and what they truly found. The clock was ticking, mates, and their time was running out. Faced with the crushing reality of the empty depot, Burke, Wills, and King made a desperate decision. They couldn't follow Bra's party, not in their weakened state. Their only hope was to try and reach the nearest Aboriginal settlement, or perhaps to find a way to survive in this harsh land, relying on the skills they'd learned, or thought they'd learned. They dug up the cache, found the note, and understood the tragic timing of their arrival. The despair must have been immense, a weight heavier than any pack they'd carried. But even in the darkest of times, the Outback can offer a glimmer of hope, often from the most unexpected sources. The local Yandrawanda people, they had been observing the expedition from a distance. They knew the land, its rhythms, its secrets. They saw the whitefellas struggling, lost, and starving. And despite the initial mistrust, some of them, driven by compassion and their deep connection to the land, offered help. They showed King how to find nardu, a native plant with edible seeds, a staple food for them. It was a lifeline, a chance to stave off starvation, even if it wasn't enough to fully sustain them. It was during this period of desperate survival that the mystery of the treasure took another turn. King, the sole survivor, later recounted vague memories of Burke and Wills in their final days, obsessing over a particular spot, a rock formation, or a cluster of trees near Cooper Creek. They spoke of a hidden marker, a place where they had supposedly buried something of immense value, something they couldn't carry on their desperate dash north. Was it a hidden cache of supplies they'd left on the way up? A contingency plan that had been forgotten in their haste? Or was it something else entirely? Some say it was a map, meticulously drawn by Wills, detailing the location of the singing stones or the dreaming spring they had encountered in the north. A map they believed would be their legacy, their true contribution to the colony. There's a local legend among the Yandrawanda people about a white fella's secret, a place where a powerful object was buried, an object that brought both great knowledge and great sorrow. They say the spirits of the land protect this secret, ensuring that only those who truly understand and respect the Outback can ever find it. Was this the treasure Burke and Wills were so desperate to secure, even in their dying moments? A secret so profound, so powerful, that they believed it was worth risking everything for. The Outback, she has a way of testing a man's spirit, and sometimes she reveals truths that are stranger than any fiction. The kindness of the Aboriginal people, a testament to their enduring wisdom and humanity, offered a brief respite, a chance to cling to life. But the hidden treasure, whatever it was, continued to exert its silent, deadly pull, drawing them deeper into the embrace of the unforgiving land. The final act of this tragedy was about to unfold, and the secret of the treasure, it was about to be buried with them, perhaps forever. The Nardu, it kept them alive, but it wasn't enough. Their bodies, already ravaged by scurvy and exhaustion, couldn't properly digest it. Burke and Wills, they grew weaker by the day, their strength fading, their minds clouded by delirium. The Outback, she was slowly, relentlessly, claiming them. They moved from camp to camp, a desperate, agonizing crawl across the parched landscape, always searching for water, always hoping for a sign of rescue, always haunted by the knowledge that salvation had been so close, yet so cruelly snatched away. Burke, the once impetuous leader, became increasingly erratic, his decisions clouded by illness and despair. Wills, ever the meticulous one, continued to record their dwindling supplies, their failing health, and the grim reality of their situation in his journal, his handwriting growing weaker with each entry. These journals, mates, they're a chilling testament to the human spirit's struggle against overwhelming odds, and a window into the final agonizing moments of two men who dared to challenge the wilderness. It was during these final desperate days that the treasure they sought, or perhaps found, seemed to manifest itself in strange and terrifying ways. King, who was still relatively stronger, later spoke of Burke and Wills having vivid hallucinations, seeing shimmering oases that vanished upon approach, hearing voices whispering their names in the wind. Were these just the effects of starvation and dehydration? Or was the Outback, in its ancient mystical way, showing them glimpses of what they had lost or what they had disturbed? Some Aboriginal stories speak of spirit traps in the desert, places where the unwary can become ensnared by illusions, their minds twisted by the land's ancient power, leading them to their doom. Was the treasure a physical object, a map, or a piece of knowledge that had somehow opened their minds to these dangerous, otherworldly influences? There's a particularly haunting account from King, where he describes Burke, in his final hours, clutching something tightly in his hand, something small and glowing faintly, even in the harsh daylight. He tried to pry it open, but Burke's grip was surprisingly strong. When Burke finally succumbed, King found nothing in his hand. Just empty, calloused palms. Was it a trick of the light, a dying man's delusion? Or had Burke, in his last moments, released the treasure, allowing it to return to the land from whence it came? The Outback, she has a way of absorbing secrets, of making them a part of her vast, silent expanse. Burke died first, on or about June 28, 1861, his body found by King, lying beneath a gidgee tree. Wills, too weak to move, urged King to leave him, to save himself. He died a few days later, alone, his final journal entry a poignant farewell. The Outback had won, and the secret of the hidden treasure, it seemed, was buried with them, deep in the red earth, waiting for someone, or something to uncover it once more. But one man, Mates, was still clinging to life, a lone figure in a vast, unforgiving wilderness, carrying the burden of their shared ordeal, and perhaps a fragment of the truth. Of the 4 men who made that desperate dash north, only one survived, John King. A young soldier, he was the least experienced of the group, but he possessed an incredible resilience, a quiet strength that saw him through the darkest days. After Wills's death, King was left utterly alone, a solitary figure in a vast, indifferent landscape. He was starving, weak, and surrounded by the ghosts of his fallen comrades. But he didn't give up. He continued to rely on the Nardu, the plant the Aboriginal people had shown him, and he somehow managed to keep moving, driven by a primal will to survive. It was the Yandrawanda people who found him. They had been watching him, providing subtle assistance, leaving food and water where he might find it, guiding him without revealing themselves fully. They were the true heroes of this tragic tale, their knowledge of the land and their compassion saving the last white fella standing. When a relief party, led by Alfred Howitt, finally found King, he was barely alive, a skeletal figure, his clothes in tatters, his mind scarred by the ordeal. He was the sole witness to the final agonizing days of Burke and Wills, and his accounts, though often fragmented and colored by his trauma, became the primary source of information about their demise. And it was King's whispers, his fragmented memories, that further fueled the legend of the hidden treasure. He spoke of Burke's obsession with a particular spot, a marker near Cooper Creek, where something important had been buried. He recalled Wills's cryptic entries about a discovery that would change everything. But King, in his weakened state, couldn't provide precise details. Was it a map? A journal detailing a new gold field? Or something far more esoteric, something that defied conventional understanding? The Outback, she has a way of blurring the lines between reality and hallucination, especially when a man is pushed to the brink of death. King's survival, a miracle in itself, became a beacon of hope, but also a source of endless speculation. What did he truly see? What did he truly know? And what secrets did he carry, buried deep within his traumatized mind, that he couldn't or wouldn't articulate? Some say King, in his gratitude to the Yandrawanda people, was sworn to secrecy about certain aspects of their journey, particularly anything related to ancient Aboriginal sites or powerful artifacts they might have encountered. Others believe that the treasure was never a physical object, but a profound spiritual revelation, a connection to the dream time that Burke and Wills, in their arrogance, failed to comprehend, but which King, through his suffering and his interaction with the indigenous people, had glimpsed. The Outback, she keeps her secrets close, mates, and sometimes the only way to truly understand them is to become a part of her, to listen to her whispers, and to respect her ancient ways. King lived out his days haunted by the expedition, a living testament to its tragedy, and a silent keeper of its deepest mysteries. And the treasure, whatever it was, remained elusive, a phantom in the vast red heart of Australia. The Burke and Wills expedition, mates, remains one of the most compelling and tragic chapters in Australian history. It's a story that continues to fascinate, to inspire, and to haunt. Historians have pored over the journals, retraced their steps, and debated every decision made. But despite all the research, all the analysis, the mystery of the hidden treasure persists. What exactly were Burke and Wills looking for, beyond the glory of crossing the continent? And what, if anything, did they find that was so significant, so dangerous, that it contributed to their ultimate demise? Over the years, countless theories have emerged. Some believe the treasure was simply a misplaced cache of gold, perhaps from a secret prospecting venture Burke was involved in. Others suggest it was a map to a vast undiscovered mineral field, a secret too valuable to fall into the wrong hands. And then there are the more outlandish theories. A lost Aboriginal artifact of immense power, a meteorite with unique properties, or even evidence of an ancient, pre-Aboriginal civilization hidden deep within the Outback. The Outback, she's a vast canvas for the imagination, and the Burke and Wills story, with its tantalizing hints of something more, has become a fertile ground for speculation. Even today, mates, people still search. Adventurers, amateur historians, and even professional treasure hunters, they venture into the remote corners of the Outback, armed with old maps, metal detectors, and a burning desire to uncover the truth. They follow the faint trails, they pore over old documents, and they listen to the whispers of the wind, hoping to find that one clue, that one piece of evidence that will finally unlock the secret of Burke and Wills's hidden treasure. I remember a few years back a fella from Perth, a keen bushman, he swore he'd found something. A small, intricately carved wooden box, buried shallow near a dry creek bed, not far from where Gray was buried. Inside, he said, were a few tarnished coins, a compass, and a small, leather-bound notebook. The notebook, he claimed, contained cryptic drawings and a series of numbers that didn't seem to make any sense. He was convinced it was a cipher, a code left by Wills, pointing to the location of the real treasure. He spent months trying to decipher it, but eventually he gave up, frustrated. He said the Outback had a way of guarding its secrets, of making you chase shadows until you were too exhausted to continue. He believed the notebook was a decoy, a final cruel joke played by the land itself, leading seekers on a wild goose chase. Was it just a coincidence, a random find? Or was it a deliberate plant, a final desperate attempt by Burke or Wills to leave a breadcrumb trail to their true discovery, knowing they might not make it out alive? The Outback, she's a master of deception, and she loves to play games with those who dare to challenge her. The legacy of Burke and Wills isn't just about exploration and tragedy. It's about the enduring allure of the unknown, the tantalizing possibility that there's always something more to discover, something hidden just beneath the surface of history. And as long as the Outback stands, vast and mysterious, the search for their hidden treasure, whatever it may be, will continue. Because in this land, mates, some legends, they just refuse to die. So there you have it, mates. The tragic, yet endlessly fascinating tale of the Burke and Wills expedition, and the enduring mystery of their hidden treasure. We've journeyed through their grand ambition, their desperate struggle against the unforgiving Outback, and the cruel twist of fate that sealed their doom. We've explored the whispers of ancient Aboriginal lore, the tantalizing hints in their journals, and the enduring speculation about what they truly sought and what they truly found. Was the treasure gold, jewels, or a map to untold riches? Perhaps. But as Old Man Roo sees it, the real treasure of the Burke and Wills expedition isn't a physical hoard. It's the story itself. It's the testament to human endurance, to the relentless pursuit of discovery, and to the humbling power of the Australian Outback. It's a reminder that this land, in all its beauty and brutality, holds secrets far deeper than any gold mine. Secrets of survival, of ancient wisdom, and of the profound connection between man and nature. Their journey, though tragic, opened up the interior of Australia to further exploration, paving the way for future generations. And in their failure, they left behind a legacy of questions, a tantalizing puzzle that continues to draw us in, making us wonder about the uncharted depths of this vast continent and the mysteries that still lie hidden beneath its ancient surface. The Outback, she doesn't give up her secrets easily, mates. And sometimes the greatest treasure isn't what you find, but what you learn along the way. This Outback, she's a part of me. And these stories, they're a part of her. If you've been captivated by the tale of Burke and Wills, and if you want to hear more legends from the heart of Australia, then make sure you hit that like button. It helps us bring more of these Outback Confessions to you. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Join our growing family of Outback adventurers, and let's keep these legends alive together. We've got plenty more stories to tell, plenty more mysteries to unravel, and plenty more of the real Outback to share with you. So, until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, the Outback always has another secret to reveal. Good on you, mates, and I'll see you next time right here on Outback Confessions.